There she is. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. There's that smile. Love to see that smile. All right. Well, I'm excited that you decided to spend a little time with me today and with our audience and our community, sharing a little bit about what you've learned. You've been on a wild journey these past couple months.
Yeah,
It's been a bit of a whirlwind, huh?
it has been.
But I really, there's so much I admire about you and what you've been willing to do and face in the past couple of months. I know there's going to be a lot that you'll be able to share that other people can relate to. So why don't we just kind of start, if you're willing to share a little bit about where you were at prior to working with our system, what was going on for you in life and emotionally and all of that type of stuff.
Well, I had been struggling with depression and anxiety since I was a kid, and I have a trauma history. And as an adult, the struggle continued.
Mhm.
And I lost several really good jobs in my career because I couldn't function. And I was hospitalized multiple times, and I had years of therapy and tons of medications, and nothing worked. The anxiety just would not go down. So by
Right.
the time I connected with you, I was pretty desperate to find something to relieve my anxiety or to get rid of it.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. And so that was what, how many decades were you struggling with that then?
Oh my God. Well, since I've had anxiety since I was a kid, I'm 67 now, so
Hmm.
a very long time.
Long time, yeah. Wow. And so for you, did it just kind of stay at the same level, or did you just kind of get sort of comfortably numb? Like, how was the trajectory of your mental health over the years?
The trajectory actually got worse because I was able to complete two master's degrees, and I functioned pretty well for a while. But as I got older, the anxiety seemed to get worse, and
Hmm.
I was having panic attacks. And I was not going out of the house. I really just lost my ability to pretty much function overall.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's like the higher the anxiety gets, the smaller life gets, you kind
Mm-hmm.
of get into a smaller and smaller comfort zone. What were some of the trade-offs or sacrifices you feel like the anxiety made you have to make?
Well, my world was very limited. I had very few friends. I didn't go out places and do things.
Mhm.
I wasn't in any relationships, and I realized once I did the relationship class, realized how lonely I was.
Sure.
Um, I wasn't able to work. I had lost my ability to support myself financially. Um, I I lost. I was homeless twice, so I pretty much lost everything.
Wow. 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 That's I mean, the fact that you went through all of that and then you're here where you are right now. I mean, if that doesn't show people, what you're able to do, I mean, that's amazing. That's quite an inspiration. Well, and it's crazy that too that you mentioned you did have sort of an independent lifestyle. You were an educated woman. You had all these things sort of going for you. It's amazing how much anxiety sort of robs us of because it gets you in survival mode. And when you get in survival mode, everything else slowly falls by the wayside. Relationships, and it usually starts with like the things that we find the most joy in. And then it'll go to our relationships, and then it'll even go down to our, what makes us feel like we're physically healthy and thriving. We'll make very bad decisions. So, uh,
Mhm.
but you're here. That's great that you made that. And so was the depression more so just because the anxiety was so limiting and so high, and that it made you feel out of control in your life, or where did the depression factor in?
I think the depression started when I was younger because of my family situation. But then as I got older and I was out on my own, the
Hmm.
depression seemed to resolve itself pretty much, but the anxiety was still there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Well, so now you had tried a lot, basically all the traditional stuff. So, I think that one of the big things that people, experience is when they have a history like you know, they've been struggling with anxiety and or depression for a while, and they do what they think they're supposed to do. You know, they do what they're told to do. And this is a very logical thing, you know, go do therapy, go do medication. I think you even mentioned a couple hospitalizations. I was
Mm.
hospitalized at one point. And, you know, those methods can be very effective for some people, but I think that there's a large group of people out there where it's just not quite gelling for them.
Yeah,
And no one ever kind of like taps them on the shoulder and says like, hey, if this isn't working for you, it's not necessarily your fault. It's just maybe it's not working for you. So, you know, now that you've kind of seen like the other side, what do you think from a big picture perspective you were missing before, like those decades previously when you tried those traditional routes?
I was missing the conditioning piece of it,
Hmm.
the ability to or to know that I could change my thoughts,
Hmm.
like that rumble strip thing, the thing where you um, choose what you're going to focus on
Hmm.
and what meaning you're going to give it and the physiology you're going to use.
Hmm.
That was that right that up. You had me hooked because it like I knew I could change how I felt, that I had the ability to do that.
And
And
that was just within the first couple of days we
that,
got
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Hmm.
And right there, I knew that this was going to work.
Right.
And being able to change my values and rewrite my new values and the whole issue of control and being able to recondition my brain, and
Yeah.
that it wasn't just a matter of rehashing the past over and over. I can't tell you how many times I did that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, I don't know exactly what your therapist did or what they tried with you. I can guess because I know, you know, how most people go about it. But the impression that a lot of patients and clients get from their therapists is just the idea of, yeah, the anxiety is going to be with you for the rest of your life. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it was kind of the idea that the anxiety and the depression was going to be with you forever was really the thing that kind of kept you stuck, right? Like you had to break that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and I really want people to hear that because I think that that belief is the belief that keeps people stuck for a really, really long time.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I always tell people is, what are the chances that you're really going to solve a problem that you have convinced yourself is unsolvable, right? If you convince yourself the problem is unsolvable, you'll stop taking action. You'll stop trying things. You might be 3 feet from gold. You know, you might be right there. You might just be missing one or two things. But if you've convinced yourself, nope, I'm just going to have this for the rest of my life, that usually is the box that people stay boxed in. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, now, I know that you, over the past few months, have as soon as you started to take a little bit of your power back, it was kind of like a snowball, you know. And so you've been taking charge of a lot of different things. Talk a little bit about what that journey was like. So once you implemented a couple brain retraining tools, you started to learn, wow, you know what, I can actually kind of change how I feel a little bit. What kind of happened next in your journey? What were a couple of the other big light bulbs for you?
Well, a couple of the other light bulbs were was estranged from my family, and one of the people was my stepmother, who had stopped talking to everybody in the family. And I was able to sit down and write her a very heartfelt letter, a very positive letter. And I had also been out of touch with my sister, and now I'm in regular contact with her, which is really great.
Yeah. That's awesome. I remember that session where I was like, let's write this letter. And the important thing too with that was to put the energy out there, but not be attached to the outcome of what
Right,
might come back or might
right.
not. Yeah. And I think that's a big theme that you've learned in the past couple months too, is the ability to, we call it playing the game of life from the inside out, not the outside in. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Like, what did you used to spend your time and your energy on? And then what do you spend your time and your energy on now? So people can kind of get a sense of how that shift can impact their mental health.
Well, my time and energy used to be spent on very solitary activities. I had a lot of intrusive thoughts, so I spent a lot of time just dwelling on things. And now I spend a lot more time with people. I spend time with friends, and I've started to go out looking for a relationship.
Hmm.
So I've been putting myself out there, as you say,
Right.
and I joined an online dating site.
That's awesome. Yeah, and
So
you're talking to people. Yeah, you're doing it. You're
yeah,
mingling. You're single and ready to mingle. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
It's great. And so what do you think looking back on the last couple months? I know so you did the mental health program and then we just finished the relationship program. So it's
Right.
been I think about 6 months. Um, and looking back on the past 6 months, what do you think, like what was the old way of looking at the world and what's the new way of looking at the world? What are kind of the top couple of shifts that you think you made?
My old way of looking at the world was things are not going to change. They're going to be like this forever. I'm going to be alone forever. Um, Being afraid to even go out of the house was something that I was going to have to live with.
Mhm.
But my new way of looking at the world is I can hang out with other people and have a good time and be sociable and feel like I have something to contribute, and that I want to contribute to other people,
Yeah.
and that I don't have to be alone, that I can find someone out there that's for me.
Yeah. Awesome. So what do you think, what would you say, you might remember I used this term, we call it like the North Star. Sometimes in life, we have kind of a North Star that's guiding us. For some people, it's trying to feel safe all the time. For some people, it's really trying to feel successful, right? And everything they do is all about trying to be successful. For other people, it's about people pleasing, everybody. So, what was the big North Star of your life before? Like, what was your life about before? And then what's your life about now?
My life before was just about being safe and being secure,
Mhm.
because I had felt unsafe for so long. And my life now is about getting out there and meeting people and doing things and being a part of things and contributing to things.
But
Real-
as you're doing that, you feel much more safe and more confident and certain too,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. I think this is a big thing that I think this is a good learning moment for everybody who's watching because there's the term that I like to use is paradoxical feelings. So there are certain feelings that the more you chase after them, the less you feel them, right? Remember we talked about that?
Mhm.
So, trying to feel certain all of the time, the more you try to chase down the feeling of certainty, the less certain you feel. The more you try to feel safe all the time, the less safe you feel. The more you try to protect yourself from getting hurt in a relationship, usually the more hurt you end up getting, those types of things.
And I did all those things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and we all have, from time to time, but sometimes those patterns will last for years or decades. So what's beautiful about you is you really let that old garbage go and you embraced, growth and self-love and connecting with other people and just joy, like all those sorts of things. But as you're pursuing those things, you would think that by no longer focusing on safety and certainty and all that, if I don't focus on that, I'm never going to feel safe and certain. But it's actually the opposite when we shift our energy away from those things, then you feel them all the time, right?
Another thing that really stuck with me is I was really focused on the past and
Mhm.
all the terrible things that had happened in the past. And one of the things I learned was looking for the gift in what the past had given me, and being that I'm a stronger person because of it, and I'm able to give more because of it, and I can take care of myself. And so being able to focus on those things helped me to let go of the past.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I was just going to ask you what you would advise someone who had had a traumatic background to do, like what you would kind of tell them in terms of how to look at things differently or how to process that. Because you said that in therapy you rehashed the past a bunch of times. So what was the difference between just talking about the past over and over again compared to actually processing it and moving on and healing? What do you think was the difference between those two?
I think the difference was there was no going over the same thing over and over again. It was like there was no way out. It was like a gerbil on one of those wheels
Right.
where you
Right.
kept going round and round and round. And um, the difference is that focusing on what good came out of the past
Hmm.
made it not so important in the sense of holding me back, but allowed me to move forward and do the things that I wanted to do.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah, there's a old saying that sounds a little cheesy on the surface, but has a ton of wisdom to it, which is that, you can either look at life as happening to you, or you can look at life as happening for you. And as soon as you start to ask yourself the question of what hidden gift or what kind of resource did I end up getting because I went through that experience,
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you're able to look at every single thing that happened in the past as an asset, as a resource, as something that helped you, as opposed to just hurt you. That was one of the big things that was required for me to, and it's not even looking back on it, my childhood wasn't the worst by any means. Plenty of people have had it much worse than me, but that's what enabled me to be able to forgive people who had hurt me and to love them and have a really healing relationship with them again and to forgive myself and just, it's such a lighter way to live by asking yourself, yeah, but what good came from it? It's a little tough to ask yourself that question at first. It's not easy. The answers don't come to
Right,
you automatically
right.
because your mind is so used to just looking at the pain over and over and over. So a lot of times, asking someone that question of, well, what good came from it? They go, what are you talking about? No good came from it. But there's always a gift. There was always some type of a hidden gift, no matter how painful the experience was. So, and it can always be found. It takes courage to ask those questions, to look at things differently. And you have definitely demonstrated courage again and again and again, week by week. It's just really a reflection of who you really are, deep down.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I love to see that. Absolutely. Um, what do you think would be, like if you could talk to the Karen from, 6 months ago, all right, maybe you think about this a little bit. Uh, I know that towards the end of the program, we have you guys write a letter to your old self, right? So what would be some of the key things that you would tell her back then if she was still kind of in that stuck mode and that stuck mindset?
I would tell her that your brain can be retrained, that this is not where you need to be forever, that there's a way out,
Hmm.
that there's hope for the future. You're not going to be alone forever. You don't deserve to be alone. And you'll come to terms and be at peace, and you'll be able to experience joy in life.
Absolutely. I love that. I think too, the what you're doing, you correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think you're doing to yourself now is you're no longer making yourself feel small and less than, right? Like you seem to there we go. That's the smile I was looking for. Yeah, you've clearly made a decision to be the source of your own validation, be the source of your own self-love instead of getting pissed off and irritated that all these other people in the past or whatever didn't give you what you were wanting. You know, that's a common trap that we've all gotten into. We have to become the source that pours into ourself first, and then it overflows very quickly. But if we go out into the world and in the universe with an empty cup, we're constantly looking to get filled up by other people, then we feel empty all the time. Um,
Great thing is that I used to wake up in the morning so anxious I couldn't get out of bed. And
mhm.
now I wake up in the morning and I jump out of bed and there's no anxiety. And I said goodbye to my therapist, and they're taking me off my medication slowly. And it's all different. It's so different now.
All different, a lot lighter, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot.
Now that because before there was so much energy and space that was filled up with just, worry and ruminating and anxiety in the past, right? That was taking up so much space for you. So now that you've let go of that, what has kind of filled that space for you?
Oh, I do think I've been reading a lot, and mostly I'm much more social than
Yeah,
I used to be.
a lot of love then. Good.
Getting out with other people, and again, the dating site, and looking for people to meet, and
Yeah.
just doing little projects. And I'm like constantly active. I don't sit in my room and sit on my bed and wonder or think about how awful I feel.
Right. I love that, Karen. I think the beauty is that, one key tidbit for anybody listening is that problems need energy to grow. And you are no longer feeding the worries and the fears and the ruminations with lots of energy, right? You're starving those of energy. And instead, what you're giving energy is, uh, pouring into other people, right? Connecting with other people, just having joy, having laughter, growing, right? Expanding your mind to new things. So, it is so simple, but what you grow, or excuse me, what you feed tends to grow. And I think that's a really important thing for people to understand because the vicious cycle people get into is they start feeling a little anxiety and then they start doing less in their life. So they stop going out to lunch and going out to with friends. So then they have more time for anxiety to just take up more space. Then they stop going to work. Then they stop leaving the house, or it can get really extreme, depending on how bad it is. And then we think that because we're feeling so anxious, we need to say no to more things in our outside world.
Right.
We need to somehow get to a point where we feel calm first, and then we'll go back out into the world. And I think you've realized it's the opposite. You get to re-engage in the world. You got to feed joy, feed love, feed these relationships, and that's the thing that will grow and dominate. And
Mm-hmm.
the anxiety gets just starved to death. So it's a really cool thing. So what does the future hold for you now? Because before you were just focused on the past, you probably had a pretty bleak vision of the future. What was your vision of the future then, and what's your vision of the future now?
My vision of the future then was just more of the same, that I was going to be in therapy forever and on medication forever and feeling anxious forever. But now I'm going to get a volunteer job.
Awesome.
Um, this may sound corny to some people, but I'm going to join a bowling league,
No, that's awesome. I love that.
which I did. I used to do that a long time ago and I really liked it. So I'm going to do that.
Awesome.
I'm going to continue on the dating site.
Yeah.
I've met a couple of people that
Good.
I've been interacting with, and I'm going to just keep putting myself out there and
Yeah.
building a future. I thought sort of I was retired and that was kind of it. And
Yeah.
this was the past was what I was stuck with, but that's not the way it is anymore.
Yeah. Karen, I just want to give you a hug. You've been doing so good. You know what I love about you is I think the biggest change I've seen in you in the past couple of months is you came into this experience and your heart was closed. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
I could tell immediately you're a hugely compassionate person. I could tell right away you got a heart of gold, but you were so afraid and you'd been feeling so small and insecure for so long and you'd been hurt, in the past. And so whenever we get hurt and whenever we get disappointed and whenever people tell us you're just going to have to settle for a life of pain, we start to close our heart. We don't want to get disappointed, so we stop trying. We just
Yeah,
we stop putting ourselves out there.
yeah,
And that's the biggest change I see in you is now you're doing all these things, and it doesn't really matter like what specific thing you do or whether it's a bowling league, and it doesn't matter for anybody listening. Like, it doesn't really matter what you fill your life with. What does matter is are you doing it with an open heart, and to have that open heart, it requires the courage, it requires that whole self-love thing we were talking about. And these are not like, I know that for people listening it may sound a little like woo woo, like, okay, cool, how do you do that? But you worked your tail off. I mean, this is like there are real skills that you have learned and that you have
Yeah,
mastered and that you have, I mean, this is not like let's just go meditate for 3 hours and your life is transformed. Like you have been working at this piece by piece by piece,
it
and
was
it's
hard work.
yeah, and it's become who you really are now. You know,
Yeah,
it's become
that,
who you really are. So I am incredibly thrilled for you. I couldn't be more excited. I'm so proud of everything that you've done. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and play a role in this transformation of yours.
well, I'm very grateful to you.
Oh, that's very sweet. But you definitely deserve 99% of the credit. So you're the one that actually put it into use, and you know, have proved anybody can do this if they just set their mind to it. So we're all very grateful for you sharing your heart and your wisdom and your presence with us for a little while today and a couple lessons with the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Karen. All right, well, it's not goodbye. Just see you later,
All
okay?
right, take care.
All right, see you later. Bye.